let me dive into the Cortex framework, give you a little bit of an overview. As Joe has mentioned already, I think the genesis of the framework itself came from the complexities that actually in the last years hasn't really disappeared. They only increased because, as we all know, there are so many different data sets, different platforms that organizations use, and all of that really creates the complexity. So when we started working on Cortex framework at Google about 5 years ago, it was actually to help ourselves with our SAP data analysis. And then shortly we realized that many other customers of ours are having the same problems, and so the Cortex framework became productized, and we started offering our customers ability to essentially utilize the same solution that we use internally here as well. And at the end of the day, the framework really is geared to help organizations break down the silos which are created due to the multiple teams having to work on with different platforms. In many cases, organizations may have different BI tools and so on and so forth, kind of spread across the organization. The other aspect of it is, of course, ability to actually make the insights from analytics available to everyone. And that may include people inside the organization. It sometimes does include partners that you want to share your data with. And so Cortex does provide those capabilities. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation as well. And then lastly, and again, Joe has mentioned this, is that the more we move forward and the more data sets appear, it actually becomes very important to work on the recent data, right? So the data recency, or as we sometimes call it, near real-time data, really helps organizations conduct analysis on the latest available data, be able to respond and react to events in a timely manner, and that all gives a competitive advantage to the organization as well. And so if we were to look at the Cortex framework, it really consists of the following things. So first of all, it does provide you with the ability to work with your business data, such as the Oracle ERP data and some of the other business data sets, to bring that into analytical platform. We will talk a little bit about the accelerators that help do that, but also ability to add community and the public data sets. So these days, especially when you use machine learning algorithms and things of that nature, having additional data sets really helps enhance the analytics and provide more in-depth insights on things like supply chain, for example. And then all of this is enabled by a variety of different products, Incorta being one of them that kind of fulfills the data acquisition aspect of it, of bringing the business data from Oracle into the BQ. And then an additional products like Vertex AI, for example, helps customers run machine learning models on top of that data. Looker dashboards can be used to visualize the data, and a few other components that really just play orchestration, data cleansing, transformation part. But most importantly, all of this now results in a reference architecture that a customer gets when they deploy Cortex. So with the default deployment, you essentially get all of these components tied together, ready to go and ready to be used, which again is driving the time to value aspect of it for many organizations. And if an organization is embarking on something similar to this from scratch, typically it would take months, in some cases maybe even years, to actually get all the models developed, to put together all the pipeline, to ensure that all the transformations are in place, to put all the visualizations in place. And so with Cortex, we have enabled the customers to be able to deploy and receive all these assets as a foundation upon which you can then later build up or customize it to your use case specifics. So just to summarize, with Cortex, you will receive all the connectors necessary to move the data from your source systems into the BQ. There is the reference architecture that serves as a foundation. It's not a rigid architecture. It can be customized, every single component of it. But again, day one, and it does take literally a few hours to deploy Cortex, day one, you'll be able to run analytics essentially with end-to-end scenarios. And that all is essentially the part of the deployment accelerators that comes with the templates, all of the pipeline queries, dashboards that are built in and ready to go. And also, last but not least, also all of the AI and ML capabilities. There are some algorithms that are built into Cortex. Demand sensing is one of them, and Sri will be demonstrating that later. But there's also many other examples of machine learning algorithms that can be applied on top of the Cortex data as well. So here is an example of a typical architecture with Cortex. And so let me walk you through the slide a little bit. On the bottom, you see all of the business systems. So Oracle ERP, Workday, could be SAP ERP as well, Salesforce, and many other systems. In many cases, customers would use their internal systems from finance, HR, etc., to bring all those data sets together. And then on the right-hand side, these are the community and the public data sets. And again, as I mentioned earlier, oftentimes customers do find it very useful to combine this data, especially in the machine learning scenarios where new and additional insights can be derived from this data. Then further up, we do have all the tooling, and in some cases this is Google tooling, in some cases it's a partner tooling, as it is the case with Incorta. And in the middle, in the blue box, is where you see the main Cortex data foundation. So it consists of all of the raw data that's coming from the source systems. It also has a data model that is industry specific and system specific. And so all of that business data is being transformed into the CDC model that is more suitable for analytics. And also on top of that, there are other models that are more suitable for visualization, right? And so on the right-hand side, you see a little block here that indicates the AI and machine learning models that are applicable to this data. As I mentioned, one is included and tied into the deployment. The other are available and can be essentially customized to be working on top of the same data. On the left-hand side, this block here that says application layer templates. This is for sharing the data and syndicating the insights across the organization. And there's different mechanisms that are utilized there. I do have a slide a little bit later in the presentation, which I can cover that aspect of it as well. And then finally, on the top, of course, are all of the actual dashboards. So Cortex does come pre-built with a number of dashboards to address the use cases, and we do support sales and marketing use cases, financial, supply chain, customer insights, and there can be more, of course. But there's about, I don't know, maybe half a couple of dozen actually dashboards that kind of address these use cases. And again, I'll talk about the use cases later down in the presentation. So at the end of the day, what Cortex really gives you is this foundation, analytical foundation, with ability to accommodate multiple data sets. These data sets can be your business data. It can be additional data sets that you bring. Quite frankly, it can be private data sets that you have in your organizations, or third-party data sets like the community ones that we spoke about earlier. And again, it comes with everything that is prepackaged and ready to be used, which, if you think about it, is probably the biggest benefit of Cortex. Again, as I mentioned, it may take months, and it does take months, many organizations, to put together solutions like this, whereas here, literally within days, you can be analyzing data and obviously driving value with that. So here is an example of the type of data, and this is just a representative set of data sets that we capture. So ERP data sets that include procurement data, finance data, sales and distribution data, and so on and so forth, as well as the Salesforce data that can be brought into Cortex. And then on the right-hand side, all of the public data sets that I already mentioned. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Let's just move forward to the next slide. So what I want to cover here is, once you have your data analyzed and you produce the insights from it, oftentimes you do need to make it available not just via the dashboards, but also programmatically, right? It can be a scenario where there is an application that's consuming this data for actual activation, or it could be a partner organization that you need to share this data with. So whatever the scenario is, these templates that we provide with Cortex help you essentially accomplish that. And there's multiple mechanisms by which that can be accomplished. There are REST API endpoints. There's also PubSub mechanisms that can be used to subscribe to data. And so again, this gives you a very quick foundation that's ready to go, ready to be used. And then further, of course, if you need to enhance it, modify the endpoints, for example, to add some custom things, that can very much be done, because everything that you deploy with Cortex is deployed into your tenant. It is your code base essentially, and it can be customized further. So then want to mention that Cortex is actually an open source, right? It's available in GitHub. It can be readily downloaded, deployed. Whenever there's modifications in Cortex, you are able to pull those changes into your code base as well. So you get the benefit of additional capabilities. And we do have a fairly sophisticated roadmap for developing Cortex further, by adding additional data sources, additional capabilities, and so on and so forth. Everything that comes in GitHub is automated, so you can deploy Cortex in an automated manner. There are scripts that allow you to choose and pick sort of the way you want to deploy it. And also that deployment can be extended with Incorta's Oracle data acquisition aspect, which is what our partnership is all about. And we're really excited to be able to offer our customers ability to analyze Oracle business data within the Cortex framework. So the next set of slides is going to go a little bit into the use cases. So here is an example of the types of use cases that can be supported through Cortex. So sales and marketing insights, anything that sort of has to do with leads, opportunities, the case activities coming from Salesforce. Also financial insights, and everything that you see here that mentions SAP can also be applied to Oracle ERP data as well. So these are things that are built into the Cortex, financial insights, and also supply chain insights, obviously, with a whole variety. And this is just a representative set. It's not a finite list. There are many other sub-use cases within supply chain that we can support. On the right-hand side, on the top here, we're talking about the demand sensing. So the demand sensing is really the ability to bring your data from supply chain, analyze it, and be able to predict and forecast the demand for your products. This oftentimes helps manage the inventory at hand, and sort of reduce and optimize the costs that usually are associated with the inventory that companies keep. Right, and this is one of the algorithms, as I mentioned. There's many others available, but this one is pre-built into the Cortex framework. And in addition to that, there's also many other partner solutions that are built on top of Cortex. And so there are many other types of algorithms, reporting, dashboards that are available from other partners that we have in the system. So here I'm going to probably walk through the next set of slides relatively quickly. This is just expanding a little bit further on each additional use case. So here we talk about essentially the supply chain sourced from either SAP or Oracle. There are a variety of different scenarios that are supported here. You can see order to cash insights. Here, procure to pay insights, supply chain insights, and like I said, there's many others. In addition to that, we also have insights that are driven by the Salesforce data. And also remember that every time when we talk about this, you can always combine these sources as well. So you can have a supply chain data coming from Oracle, and you can also have a Salesforce data coming, and certain insights can be driven from that combined data set as well. So this is all tied and integrated. So for Salesforce, we're also looking at leads and opportunity management, account and contact management, and case management. Those are the three sort of prime areas for this data. And then finally, we already mentioned a little bit demand sensing. Will, I'm gonna not spend too much time on the slide because we will be doing a demo on it. But essentially, this and other algorithms really give you an ability to expand and dive into more advanced analytics as you move forward with your journey. Here's an example of how demand sensing and other machine learning algorithms are utilized within the Cortex framework. So on the left-hand side, you have your typical data acquisition. Your data is being acquired from business systems, from other sources. In fact, our example uses some promotional data to demonstrate. So all of that data is then brought into the BQ, and with the help of the Vertex AI, which is Google's platform for machine learning, these algorithms are run through the model. And then the final insights are made available in a Looker dashboard that can further essentially feed into your demand sensing, inventory optimization, and management. So that's just a quick diagram to visualize how the flow works. And a couple of more words on the Gen AI. So you undoubtedly have heard about generative AI in recent months. It is becoming a point of interest for many customers, and many are asking, well, how can I really tangibly use it for my business use cases? We now do have Gen AI tightly integrated with Cortex. So everything that you have in Cortex, all of your data, etc., becomes the context within which the generative AI can now help you essentially deliver these insights to the users in a more conversational manner. We do have a demo we'll show you, but essentially you can automate a number of tasks, right, using Gen AI. It is contextually aware, so all of the data that is part of the Cortex framework, whether it is the public data, the private data sets, the business data that you have, Gen AI application will be aware of the data so that users can interact with it, essentially asking questions and getting answers in the context of that data. And so, of course, all of that is built on top of all of the developments with Vertex AI that Google has had for a number of years now, but also expanding recently with the Gen AI capabilities. We have been building these models for quite some time, and they're now all made available. But then, of course, it can also be extended, just like anything else. If it needs to be customized, a new model built on top of the foundational model, all of those capabilities are available, including within the Cortex framework. So at the end of the day, what we really can do with Gen AI is improve the productivity. One scenario that comes to mind is oftentimes, in order to be able to share your insights with an organization, you do have to build dashboards. Once the dashboard is built, oftentimes these analytical dashboards can be fairly complicated, right? There's a lot of different columns, a lot of different charts. So someone needs to be enabled, right, on being able to use those dashboards. With Gen AI, it becomes a lot easier because you can interact with it in a natural language and essentially be getting your answers and relevant visualizations embedded in the answer, which is much easier to do, and you don't really need to train a human to speak human languages, right? So it becomes a productivity issue and really just another way of sharing your insights. And of course, these insights are all connected, right? So all of the data sets I already mentioned can be structured, unstructured data that you bring into the Cortex framework, and then further, you can surface that with the ability to provide those insights to your organization.